Hey everybody, and welcome to another segment of AstrologyAnswers.com's weekly forecast. My name is Terence. The week begins on Monday, November the 25th, 2024, when Mercury, communication Mercury, is going retrograde once again. Be careful of misunderstandings, jumping to conclusions. You can, your travel plans may have to be changed, or there could be delays. This Mercury in retrograde, they always advise don't make promises and commitments, because you may have to change your mind, especially with don't sign contracts, because now you're legally bounded, and there might be information that comes up later that would have changed your mind. Now, the moon sets the public tone, and the moon will be going into Libra, sociable, fair-minded Libra at 3:20 a.m. Pacific time. And the moon will be in harmony with the Sagittarius sun by mid-afternoon Pacific time. And so that moon to the sun brings more ease and flow, good for relationships. And so, in a way, that could be softening maybe this abrupt shifting of Mercury going retrograde. On Tuesday, the moon continues in Libra because the moon goes from sign to sign every 2.5 days. By mid-afternoon Pacific time, it's going to be very favorable with expansive Jupiter, but in tension with Venus. Now, Venus and Jupiter are the two great benefic planets, bringing a lot of positive energies. But with the Venus and Jupiter, and the moon is in stressful aspect to the Venus, what to be aware of is you could be overindulging. And with Mercury in retrograde, you may be expecting too much, and then you have to pull back. That would be the retrograde. On Wednesday, the moon goes void of course in Libra at 1:14 a.m. Pacific time until 4:21 p.m. So it is a long time, and the void of course again means that the moon is about to change signs from Libra to Scorpio, but by 1:14 a.m. it's no longer making aspects to other planets in the chart. So the energy is flat and unproductive. And especially with Mercury in retrograde and the moon void of course, you really don't want to make any important decisions, because it could just all go flat. Now, the first half of the day, with the moon void of course, the sun in Sag will be in harmony with assertive, courageous Mars in Leo. Now, Sun Mars, you might be more motivated to take action, initiate new projects, but with Mercury in retrograde and the moon void of course, avoid all things that are initiating something new. But you could have a lot of energy with that Sun Mars to wrap up and old projects. That's actually a good thing under Mercury and retrograde. Not starting important new projects, but wrapping them up. On Thursday, the moon, now in Scorpio, is going to be in Scorpio, and Libra is very different, because the public tone with the moon in Libra is very sociable and very friendly and very cooperative. Then the moon goes into Scorpio, and there's more of this tendency to want to be more introspective, be alone, be more private, and your emotions could be so much more intense. Now, the moon will be in a hard, stressful angle to impatient Mars from about 3 to 5 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're on the west coast of the United States, you're probably going to be sleeping. But if you are with that moon Mars, your sleep may start being disturbed. But for the rest of the world, that moon Mars and Mercury in retrograde, you could be impulsive, jumping to conclusions, and it could be triggering some arguments. But later in the day, by 7 p.m. Pacific time, now that intense Scorpio moon will be in harmony with pragmatic, sensible, grounding Saturn. So whatever tensions, wherever triggered earlier in the day, that can be more resolved, or you can be more grounded and centered by the end of the day. On Friday, the moon continues in passionate Scorpio, and by late morning Pacific time, the moon will be in harmony with relational, pleasure-seeking Venus. So there's a lot of harmony and cooperation. Could be good for the arts, could be good for romance. Late afternoon Pacific time, the moon in intense Scorpio will be in opposition or confrontation to disruptive, unpredictable Uranus. So that could trigger, and it's only going to last an hour or two, so always keep that in mind, but it can trigger a lot of emotional anxiousness and upset, and maybe some unexpected emotional events. Then we get to Saturday, and the moon, by 3:54 a.m. Pacific time, leaves Scorpio and goes into Sagittarius. And again, these two qualities are very different, because Scorpio wants to be private and left alone and introspective. When the moon goes into Sagittarius for 2.5 days, and especially it's great for the weekend, it is adventurous, it's optimistic, it's playful. Now, by the mid-afternoon Pacific time, the moon in adventurous Sagittarius will be in harmony with Mars, athletic, assertive Mars. And it's a Saturday afternoon, at least Pacific time. So you may be wanting, be playing sports. You may be, out there actively running errands and being really busy and hiking. So there's a lot of very positive energies. By the end of Saturday, around 10:22 p.m. Pacific time, so more on Sunday for the rest of the world, will be the next new moon in Sagittarius. We have a new moon every 4 weeks. The new moon starts to set a new intention, a new priority. Sagittarius, it's more upbeat and optimistic. But this new moon is going to square or be limited by restricted Saturn. So the new moon squaring Saturn for the next couple of weeks, that could be triggering a lot of worrying. That's that moon, the emotions. But remember, Mercury's in retrograde, and many times under Mercury in retrograde, we build mountains out of molehills. We just start, reacting as if it's worse than it really is. Now, on Sunday, December the 1st, the moon in Sag will now be in a square or hard angle with Saturn around 5-6 a.m. Pacific time. So that could be when that full moon energies really starts to trigger all this emotional worry and separation. But the good news is, by early afternoon Pacific time, now the moon is interacting with optimistic, expansive Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet that is the ruling planet for Sagittarius. So so that first part of Sunday, especially early morning Pacific time, for some reason you might be feeling very worried emotionally, financially. But then that too shall pass, because basically Sagittarius, even though it has to deal with these challenges of Saturn, Sagittarius is very upbeat and optimistic. And Sagittarius is ruled by lucky, optimistic Jupiter. And so the moon in Sag will be triggering Jupiter, the ruler of Sag, by early afternoon. And so whatever was frustrating and worrying you is just let's go, let it go, and start to feel more hopeful. I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next week with my next segment. Until then, be safe and well.